Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. UIP in association with MCWG brings you Islamic Spain, a historical trip.
Mashallah, it's sunny today, innit?
Andalus right now. That's the scenery. Something took over 1945.
We say that.
Is that really snow though? My god, that is beautiful. That is nice. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, the one like, it looks like clouds. It's oh.
Are you sure? It's mountain, man. No, it's cloud.
The mountain's there and above it, yeah? I thought it was another mountain behind it.
If I'm baffled, I just see snow and
It's snow and clouds.
For 781 years, Muslims ruled over Spain, and they lived in a cultural mix of three monotheistic faiths: Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Although the Christians and Jews lived under restrictions for much of their time, the three of them managed to live peacefully. One of the amazing attractions in Spain is the Masjid of Cordoba. This masjid was very beautifully made, with very strategic and mathematical alignment in its structures and pillars. What we will see now is a cathedral that was built inside the masjid after Spain had gone back into the Christian hands.
من عدها عد النجوم الزاهية حوض الحبيب وقد روى كل القلوب الزاكية أكوابه من عدها عد النجوم الزاهية فاعمل لنفسك إنه يوم الخلود لراضية في زين عدن شاهد.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The UIP production team are here in Spain alongside MCWG. We met a brother here who's going to give us a brief introduction about Spain and especially about the masjid in Cordoba. Akhi, when was this built? When was the masjid built?
The masjid was started by Abdurrahman I, who was the first Emir. He began construction on this in 785, which wasn't very long after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And how did they construct this masjid?
Materials were used from all over Spain, like for example these pillars that you're seeing. Some of them were brought over from different parts of Spain where places were being conquered. Other pillars were brought over from North Africa, and then yet others were made in Spain from marble and material that they found locally.
How did they get the land to build this masjid?
This initially was a church, and when the Muslims took control of Cordoba, they bought half of the church with the agreement of the Christians to use as a place of worship. But then as the population of the Muslims grew in Cordoba, people were converting in flocks, in huge numbers. They were converting to Islam. That space wasn't enough, so they purchased the remaining part of the church, which wasn't being used that much anyway, and gave them another location to build their church. And then they constructed what is now the Masjid al-Cordoba.
So, could you just briefly describe how, where they put the pillars and the construction of it all, the mathematics behind it and so?
I mean, the symmetry is amazing. The idea behind the masjid itself was for you to be able to get a feeling of the eternal, of infinity, and that was achieved by the arches that you see. Now that effect has been ruined by the fact that there is a cathedral in the middle of the masjid, but initially you would have been able to just look and the vision would have just carried on for as if forever. And the only one that lives forever or is infinite is Allah, and that's what you would have had a feeling of when you entered this masjid.
Can I ask you how the masjid is very big? How did the people listen to the khutbahs and the salah? And
That again is a very good question. But if you stand here and you look, you do realize how big this masjid was. It was huge. It was enormous. It was the largest masjid in its time. But the amazing thing was that the architects of the time were able to have the design in such a way. They were able to design it in such a way that the acoustics were such that if the imam stood here and was giving khutbah, every person in this masjid was able to hear the imam without the use of microphones and speakers.
That was the brief introduction of the masjid in Spain. Inshallah, we're going to bring you more places in Spain, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.